let me give a little backstory. I know people are always curious how I ended up in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
I haven't always been in a wheelchair. Grew up in California, family farm. That's where
I got the farm.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
And then I ended up moving out to Tucson to go to culinary school. And I went out with some friends and stuff, and we were all swimming and whatever and hanging out. And I wanted to get in the pool. I went to dive in, and I asked the guy if it was deep enough to dive. He said yes, and it was 3 feet deep. Ooh. Yeah. Heard my neck break. Ended up having a compression fracture. It was so crazy. They pulled me out, and I said shit happens, and I think I've really always lived by that. I was 18 years old when it happened in culinary school, and so I was like, what am I going to do? I ended up going to school. I got my bachelor's in political science, and I got my law degree because for some reason, I'm one of those people, I don't take no for an answer often, and I had a physical therapist tell me that I couldn't go to school full time. So, and that's because my level of injury, I'm a quadriplegic. So that means I have no fine motor and I have no tricep use and I'm paralyzed from the breast line down. So I am a full-time wheelchair user and I am a quadriplegic. I know people fight with me on the gram, but I went to school so I could do disability advocacy. So I've advocated for people with disabilities for years. I've worked with police departments. I've worked with politicians. I've been to DC, I've been flown out to Iowa. I've done a lot of advocacy. Never have I really had to advocate for myself. I'm usually advocating for other people. Then it came to, I bought this beautiful home. I was very lucky. I got a settlement. I'm very open about that, because I want people to understand, that's the truth. I'm very transparent on my Instagram if you ever look at it. And so when I had bought my first house, I made the mistake of buying it on a lake property and I had no privacy. So I found something else. It was almost 3 acres, no neighbors. I was like, yes, no people. It was gorgeous. I had a 4,000 square foot home. It was only listed for $399, which is crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh. I go out there. Come to find out, it was actually only 2 acres. The acre next to it, the guy was like, oh no, I'm going to keep it and keep all of his junk on it. And I was like, brother, no, like it's not happening. And so I negotiated with him and I bought that whole lot and the house needed to be gutted. So I bought the whole lot for $427,500. And the reason I got such a good deal on it is because this dude goes and builds and does all these expansions and puts the septic underneath the bedroom. The only way you can access it is literally cutting through the concrete. So it wasn't permit approved, and you could only buy the place if you had cash. Well, lucky me, I had cash because I was selling my other property, and I had bought that cash and whatever. Anyway, so I bought the property. I put about $175,000 into the inside of making it my beautiful, crippled dream home. And I loved it. It had this incredible kitchen that was fully accessible. I was in culinary school, so I was
needed a place to be able to do your cooking.
I loved it.
Get the wheelchair around.
Yeah, it was everything I wanted. 9 years later, the town of Gilbert came to me and they were like, hey, there was a lot of development around me. When I first bought it, it was very country, farm community area. And I was right next to the freeway exit that was about to come in. And they're like, hey, we need to buy some of your land. And I'm like, okay, I'll work with you. I figured this was happening. Let me make lemonade out of lemons. Let me make it commercial. It'll be worth more money. And then I can go on my merry way, live the American dream of what everybody dreams of, hitting the lottery with real estate. That's what happened. So I worked with them. I was very friendly. I was very fair. They came to me a few weeks after we finished the deal and they were like, hey, so we know you're going to go commercial and we realize that the road's actually going to be so close that we need to reconfigure your garage. Will you tear the house down sooner? And I said, okay, fine. As long as you let me rezone without a problem. They said, not a problem. This is 2019. No problem. I said, okay, I use their construction company to tear it down. Okay, this is all $40,000. The home is beautiful. It's immaculate. There's no problem. I got it.
Yeah, your house is worth $500 at this point, right?
Oh,
600.
God. Oh, no.
More?
$750
Oh,
easy
$750
at this point. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that, but because I'm going to make a lot of money. So I end up reaching out to like gas stations. I start talking with Chevron. So I feel really good about, okay, I'm fine with tearing it down. That's fine. And they were very happy with everything. Didn't give me any problems. I go into negotiations with Chevron. 2020 hits. COVID. And things slow down. Yeah. Everything is kind of halted. I continue negotiations with Chevron. That falls through because and this isn't real Chevron. People need to understand these are franchisees. These are individual people that they just represent themselves. And I just didn't feel like the deal was fair. And so we went back and forth. And then finally that fell through. And I was like, I'll list it. Maybe I'll rezone it. And I decided, no, I'll just go ahead and list it and let them rezone it themselves. I had another attorney that I hired, and he was really busy with another case and never found out why the other group fell through. Come to find out, as I go to rezone it myself, I'm like, I'm going to just go ahead and rezone it myself so I don't have to wait. They wanted me to donate via right-of-way dedication almost $400,000 worth of land.
And that was on the Lexington side.
Yes, actually kind of like all around it, a little slicey. They just went mostly on the top. And I almost fell out of my wheelchair. I was like, you're kidding. How can you, wait a minute. As somebody who's gone to law school, I'm like, how is this not an unjust taking? Where's the compensation? This is absolutely unjust. Lost my mind. Hire the top attorney, and I'm not going to say names because I'm not a petty bitch. Just saying. But, I can be. But I hired this attorney. I spent $34,000 with him over a year fighting this. And I kept begging, please, let me put it on my socials. I am persuasive on the socials, And he's like, no, don't do it. And he said, there's nothing I can do, just appeal. So I get to the point where I'm talking to an appeal attorney, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. My dad and I are talking about at some point, it's going to cost me more. You don't get reimbursed attorney's fees, by the way, if you appeal it. People don't understand. It's sinister. Right-of-way developments are dedications are sinister. It's a way for the government to take from business, which I see as an individual, and individuals for free, which is insane. You get no tax compensation, nothing. Anyway, so the day of the Gilbert meeting.
The town.
Yeah, town meeting. They were like, he calls me that morning and he said, everything's great. And I was like, what? They're going to pay me? He goes, no. Just everything's lined up. I'm like, okay.
That's not what you were shooting for.
No. I was like, I got off the phone and I was on fire. And I blew up the socials, and within hours, I had millions of views. And I just outed what they were doing. Not only that, then I went behind his back because I was like, I'm doing the job. And I got a hold of every single one of the city council members, and I'm like, I will out every single one of you for doing this. This is what's going on. This is absolutely unacceptable. I've lived in this town. You know me personally. And they were like, row. Within hours of my post, I get a call from my attorney, and he's like, the town of Gilbert called, and they're willing to negotiate. And he had no idea, okay? The best part about it
He didn't know what you'd done.
No, nothing. And I said, you know why that was? And he goes, no. I was like, I made a post on the socials. He's like, you did? And I'm like, yeah. He checked it out. He goes, well, it's true. So we get there, they call and they're like, we'll negotiate. Their first offer was like $180,000 or something like that. I'm like, hell no. At that point, I was like, I want it all, And so we go that night, and his assistant sits next to me, and she says, I said to her, I bet you guys had fun today. And she goes, yeah, you were lucky with this one.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, want to catch the entire episode of this Rent Stew podcast, click right here. If you're loving the Rent Stew podcast and you want to see more episodes, click right here. And as always, stay hungry, my friends.